Are you still not moved out? Hurry up and leave. Mother-in-law Lisa said this, waving her hand as if shooing away a bug. Next to Lisa, Karen, my husband's mistress, wore a triumphant smile. When I glanced behind them, I saw Karen's son, Larry, looking at me worriedly. There's no need to rush so much. Just get out already, Karen said with a nasty grin, making Larry's expression turn sad. I smiled at Larry and gave Lisa and Karen a cold stare. I'll be gone in 2 hours. Rest assured. Fine, just hurry up and pack your things, my ex-husband Matthew said with a nasty smile. I wondered why I ever loved this man. Just then, my smartphone buzzed with a message. Oh, it looks like my ride is here. I'll be leaving now. Bye. The message said my ride had arrived. So, I grabbed my belongings and left my husband's house immediately. Thank you for picking me up. I got into the luxury car parked outside. What's going on? Matthew and Lisa came out, eyes wide with surprise. I am Jessica White, a 27-year-old CEO. Since I was a child, I had a dream. I wanted to create my own design company. Jessica, you draw so well. Yes, I want to dress her in different clothes. I loved drawing since I was young. I always drew pictures of girls. I would think about what clothes to dress them in, what colors would make them shine more. I want to learn more about design. Eventually, I became interested in design itself and decided to attend a design school. During my studies, I met someone special. Jessica, I love your designs. I want to create designs like yours. Her name was Melissa Clark, the heiress to a large design company. Thank you. I like your designs too, Melissa. I'm glad to hear that. And you're also studying business, right? I really respect that. Melissa was learning about business from her father while studying design. I truly respected her and was glad to become her friend. I think you have a talent for business too, Jessica. Would you like to study with me? One day, she suggested we study business together. As we learned, I started thinking about having my own company. After graduation, I trained under her father, James. You'll be fine. Go ahead and do what you want. A few years later, with James's blessing, I finally established my own company. I was busy and fulfilled, living my dream. Jessica, if you're interested, I have someone to introduce to you. One day, James approached me with a proposal. A friend of his had a single son, and the parents were looking for a match. I'm Matthew White. I've heard a lot about you, Jessica. Matthew, who would become my husband, was introduced to me. He was a sincere man and always treated me seriously. I was attracted to him and decided to marry him after a year of dating. I'm so happy to have such a lovely daughter-in-law. Mother-in-law Lisa warmly welcomed me and celebrated our marriage. By the way, Matthew's father was not around. He left several years ago, according to Matthew. I thought I would lead a fulfilling life with work and family. One day, a message from Lisa. While at work, I received a message from Lisa. I was in an important meeting at that time and missed it. I was too busy that day to call her back. She's definitely going to complain. I sighed and called her back after work. Oh, you finally called. Sorry, I've been busy with work. That's fine. I have something important to talk about. Normally, she would complain and ask why I didn't answer the phone sooner, but today she let it go. Despite a bad feeling, I listened to her. Actually, I need financial help. I was shocked and froze at the unexpected request for money. Meanwhile, Lisa started explaining on her own. Apparently, Matthew's sister Karen had returned home after a divorce. And it's affecting our finances. Is that so? It's not just Karen, she has 3 kids with her, Lisa muttered. Hearing this, I was honestly conflicted. As a CEO, I earned enough to live comfortably with some financial aid. But even though they were family, I didn't have a deep enough connection to provide support so easily. Are you planning to abandon us? What a terrible wife you are! Noticing my hesitation, Lisa started yelling. I sighed deeply. I'll discuss it with Matthew, so please wait a bit. Suppressing my frustration, I managed to respond. Before we got married, Lisa was a very nice person. But as soon as we got married, her interference became unbearable. Are you taking care of Matthew? Aren't you neglecting the housework because of your work? She would call me almost daily with such comments. Honestly, as a busy CEO, these calls were nothing but a burden. So, I had told her once before. I'm busy with work. I'm a CEO. Women's work isn't that important, so prioritize my talks. But she got angry and scolded me instead. Lisa didn't believe I was a CEO at all. She thought I was doing some minor errands at best. As a CEO, I have a lot of responsibilities. What are you talking about? There's no way you can be a CEO. Don't lie. Even when I explained clearly, she just responded like that. Lisa didn't believe anything I said and treated me like a worthless liar. Even now, she says, you don't do any important work, and you don't help around here. So at least give us some financial aid. She continued to say such things. I'll discuss it with Matthew. I told her again and hung up the phone abruptly. Well, even if I talked to Matthew, the answer was obvious. To suppress my anxiety and frustration, I took a deep breath. Hey, your mom called asking for financial help. That night, I quickly consulted Matthew about Lisa's request. Just handle it as you see fit. His response was indifferent. His attitude had changed since we got married. Before marriage, he was very kind, but now he hardly listened to me. It seems Karen has returned home after a divorce. What? Karen? But when I mentioned his sister's name, he looked at me with trembling shoulders. Did you say Karen? Yes, I'm sure she said Karen. Surprised by Matthew's reaction, I nodded. We're not short on money, so we can afford to help a bit. Matthew had always been indifferent to what I wanted to do or what I was planning, saying do as you like. But the moment he heard the name Karen, he started listening seriously. Of course, I didn't feel good about that. All right. Maybe just a little. But it had been so long since Matthew paid attention to me. I was so happy that I couldn't help but nod. Even though I earned a decent amount as a CEO, I couldn't give a large sum. The fact that it wasn't a loan but financial aid gave me a bad feeling. Thank you. How about $2,000 a month? $2,000? That's too much. How about $500 for now? $500, huh? Well, it's better than nothing, I suppose. So, we decided on $500 a month in aid. That amount wouldn't significantly change my lifestyle if I budgeted a bit. Soon after starting the aid. Who's this? I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Thinking it might be a business contact, I answered the phone despite my suspicion. Finally. What do you think you are, making me wait? Who is this? It's Karen. The caller was Karen, Matthew's supposed sister. She must have gotten my contact information from Lisa. A heads up would have been nice. What can I do for you? Oh, right. Thanks for the aid. She called to thank me for the aid, apparently. But $500 is pretty stingy, don't you think? Her laughing comment made me angry. Is this how someone receiving aid talks? If you're unhappy, I won't help you. What? Are you that heartless? Are you saying my kids should starve? You're a terrible person. Karen complained and hung up the phone. Did I make the wrong decision? After talking with Karen, I felt reluctant to continue the aid. But ultimately, it was my decision to help. I'll keep an eye on things for now. So, reluctantly, I continued the aid, but there was no word of thanks. Jessica, let's live with my parents. What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? One day, Matthew suddenly suggested we live with his parents. Apparently, Lisa had hurt her back, and he wanted us to live with them to help her.
But isn't Karen there? She's back home living with them. Karen is raising kids. She can't take care of Mom on top of that.
Matthew argued back when I mentioned Karen. We had several discussions but couldn't reach an agreement. I'm fed up with you.
I'll take drastic measures.
In the end, Matthew sold our house, claiming it was in his name. He even sent our belongings to his parents' house. As a result, we had no choice but to live with them.
Get to work.
That's right.
As a freeloader, you better make yourself useful.
Lisa and Karen started treating me like a servant. They ordered me to clean their rooms, cook what they wanted, and more. And when I worked late, they would whisper,
"What is she doing so late? What is she doing so late?
Really, she's so disgusting." They would say such things behind my back. Already exhausted from work and household chores, their harassment pushed me further into despair.
Let me help you.
Karen's oldest son, Larry, was the one who helped me. He secretly assisted me without Lisa or Karen knowing.
Why are you helping me?
Actually. He looked apologetic as he revealed the truth.
Our father's name is Matthew White. Matthew? My husband?
Yes.
My mom isn't his sister.
It turned out that Karen was not his sister but his mistress. They had been together since their student days, and Larry and his siblings were Matthew's children.
This can't be.
I was stunned by the truth, unable to speak. But soon, my thoughts turned to anger.
It seems they've been underestimating me.
I will never forgive them. With that resolve, I immediately took action. After making all the necessary preparations, I confronted Matthew.
Matthew, I want a divorce.
I handed him the divorce papers.
What? Where did this come from? I know about you, Karen, and Larry.
Matthew looked annoyed. His lack of excuses made me realize he had no love for me.
Oh, that's perfect. We don't need a useless daughter-in-law like her.
That's right.
Matthew has me, so it's fine to get rid of her.
When Matthew tried to say something, Lisa and Karen chimed in, having overheard the conversation. Pushed by the two, Matthew signed the divorce papers. And so, we divorced.
Well, I better get out quickly.
While filing the divorce papers at the courthouse, I contacted someone to help me move out of Matthew's parents' house. Since I had already prepared, I could leave the same day. So, I decided to leave quickly. Lisa watched me with a nasty smile.
Are you still not moved out? Hurry up and leave,
Lisa said, waving her hand as if shooing away a bug. Next to Lisa, Karen also wore a triumphant smile. When I glanced behind them, I saw Larry looking at me worriedly.
There's no need to rush so much.
Just get out already, Karen said with a nasty grin, making Larry's expression turn sad. I smiled at him and then gave Lisa and Karen a cold stare.
I'll be gone in 2 hours. Rest assured.
Fine.
Hurry up and pack your things,
my ex-husband Matthew said with a nasty smile. I wondered why I ever loved this man. Just then, my smartphone buzzed with a message.
Oh, it looks like my ride is here. I'll be leaving now.
The message said my ride had arrived. So, I grabbed my belongings and left Matthew's parents' house immediately.
Thank you for picking me up.
I got into the luxury car parked outside.
What's going on?
Matthew and Lisa came out, eyes wide with surprise. Ignoring their shocked expressions, the car started moving.
That must have been tough.
The driver, my friend Melissa, said while driving. I had been venting to her for a while.
Leave that family behind.
She had always told me this and immediately came to pick me up when I told her I filed for divorce. Considering she got there in a few minutes for a normally 2-hour drive, she might have been waiting nearby. Now it starts, Jessica.
Let's show them what we're made of.
Yes, I'll make them regret this. Melissa was even angrier than I was about Matthew's actions. Grateful for her support, I talked about my plans.
For now, can I stay at your place as planned?
Of course. I was going to stay at her house. Melissa's house was much bigger than the one Matthew and I used to live in, or even Matthew's parents' house. So, having one more person wouldn't be a problem.
Melissa's house is really big.
Standing in front of her house, I realized how different it was from mine, even though I was also a CEO. It was a mansion.
Jessica White, correct?
As I was thinking that, a man approached me.
Let me introduce you. This is Brian Smith, my distant relative.
He was Melissa's relative and a lawyer. He was going to help me with the alimony and other matters.
Melissa told me a lot about you. I'll take care of everything. Yes, leave it to me. We'll definitely win.
His confident nod made me smile in return. Then, we started taking action immediately. First, we filed for alimony from Matthew and Karen. We also planned to sue Lisa for all the abuse and insults.
We have plenty of evidence.
With those words, I handed him the evidence. Actually, the evidence was gathered by someone else.
With this much evidence, it's more than enough.
Thanks to that, I was able to sue them successfully. It wasn't long after that.
You've got to be kidding me.
I received a call from Matthew on my smartphone. Quite a greeting. I'm not kidding at all. I'm not kidding at all. I received the lawsuit. What is this about?
What do you mean, what is this? It's obvious. You were cheating.
Did he really think he could get divorced without taking any responsibility? I smiled at Matthew over the phone. Don't worry.
I'll make sure you take responsibility.
When I said that, I could hear him fall silent on the other end.
Are you serious? Of course, I'm serious. Don't think you can get away with underestimating me.
I told him, who couldn't believe it, and then I hung up. Their nightmare was just beginning. I'll make sure they get what they deserve. The day after his call, I received a call from Lisa.
How could you do this? What do you mean by sending those things?
Apparently, she saw the copies of the evidence I sent along with the alimony request. The evidence clearly showed Lisa harassing me. It was enough to sue her, and it was clear that a third party had taken the footage.
There's no way this was taken naturally. It's obviously fake.
Actually, I didn't take the footage. I calmly explained to the ranting Lisa. In reality, I didn't have the time to record anything like that.
Then who?
Lisa muttered, and I handed the phone to the person next to me.
I took it. Larry?
As soon as Larry spoke, Karen started yelling on the other end. It seemed she was there too.
Why are you there?
Actually, Larry had brought his younger siblings to our house. And he began to explain calmly to the clueless Karen.
If we stayed in that house, it would ruin us all.
Larry explained that his mom seemed lively when she was harassing me.
I'm ashamed of such a mother. How dare you talk to your mother like that?
Karen started yelling again, and Larry sighed. He handed the phone back to me.
I don't want to talk anymore. That's how it is, so leave this to me.
I told her and hung up the phone. Then I turned back to Larry.
What will you do now? I don't know yet. But a children's home is better than there.
Larry spoke firmly. Before I moved into his parents' house, they had been neglected. Karen would go out every day and come back late at night. She slept all day and never took care of them.
Grandma loved us because we were her grandchildren, but she didn't let us do anything.
Lisa, on the other hand, treated him and his siblings like babies. She wouldn't let them do anything dangerous, or anything at all. When they tried to study, she would say,
"You're boys, go play outside,"
and kick them out. Conversely, if they tried to play outside with friends,
she would say, "It's dangerous to go out alone," and stop them.
Because of this, they couldn't do what they wanted and were constantly subjected to her contradictory words, which built up frustration in them as children. Feeling sorry for them, I discussed it with Melissa and invited them to stay at my house.
Then, let's live together in this house for a while.
He nodded with a smile at my suggestion. We then reported and consulted with CPS about him and his siblings. As a result, Karen lost custody.
In that case, we'll take care of them.
Melissa's father, James, suggested this. Melissa had studied business but chose not to take over the company.
I'm going to follow my own path.
She now works for a small design company. So, she wanted to raise Larry as a future successor.
If it's okay with me.
Larry responded positively to this. I also trust and respect James. I felt confident leaving Larry and his siblings in his care.
Of course, I'll help too.
Melissa was also eager to help.
Now I can bring that house down to hell without any worries.
One day, while I was thinking about that.
You ruined everything! You ruined everything!
Matthew came to my company. He claimed it was terrible that I took Karen's children away. He also implied that I had leaked unnecessary information to the company. He came to complain about it.
Because of you, I can't stay in the company.
Matthew tried to shift the blame to me. Annoyed, I decided to explain everything to him in detail.
Do you think I don't know anything?
The relationship with Karen had continued even before our marriage. He approached me with the intention of deceiving me for my wealth.
No one cares about a secretary.
Follow our way. Matthew said such things. I knew Lisa had thought that way, but I didn't expect Matthew to think the same.
Why do you think that? I'm not a secretary. Mom said so.
He muttered, and I sighed.
In case you've forgotten, I'm the CEO of this company.
When I told him, he was stunned. James should have explained that when he introduced Matthew to me.
That's a lie. There's no way you earn more than me.
Suddenly, he grabbed my arm. As I resisted, saying,
"Let go!" That's enough.
Someone grabbed his hand. It was Brian, the lawyer who had been helping me. I had planned to meet him later to discuss the alimony.
Enough already! You're the worst!
He scolded Matthew. While Matthew was startled, I shook off his arm.
What are you doing?
Eventually, the police, called by someone else, took Matthew away. Brian watched the scene closely.
It's all right now.
Brian smiled gently at me after seeing everything through. I couldn't help but feel a spark towards him. After that, Matthew and the others had no choice but to pay the alimony.
You're kidding. I'm not paying.
Karen resisted until the end, but things didn't go her way. James made sure she paid.
They haven't fulfilled their role as parents, so they should at least do this,
he said with a meaningful smile. I had known since my time training under him that he was a shrewd businessman. With his connections, escaping would be difficult.
But how did you make them pay?
Karen was a housewife. They barely managed to live on my aid and Matthew's earnings.
Oh, Dad found her a job.
According to Melissa, there were no places willing to hire Karen, who had never really worked. So, they put her in a rather tough job. Well, as long as they paid the alimony, I didn't care what happened to her.
What about that man? Matthew also paid up properly.
Matthew was arrested by the police once. Since he didn't actually hurt me, he was released soon after. However, his arrest spread the news of this incident throughout the company.
I didn't know, but his reputation wasn't very good.
Matthew was very two-faced and had deceived most people. However, some competent employees had noticed his tyranny. The divorce story started to reveal the cracks.
So, some people were already saying he couldn't be trusted.
His arrest confirmed this, and rumors spread. As a result, he was looked down upon and chose to resign voluntarily. He paid the alimony with his severance pay. Then that's okay. Incidentally, he also paid Lisa's share of the alimony.
Apparently, his mother had no savings at all.
It seems that the reason Matthew's father left was because he got fed up with Lisa doing whatever she pleased. She had been squandering his earnings and couldn't lower her living standards after the divorce. So, she secretly received money from Matthew and barely managed to get by.
If that's the case, why did she let Karen live with her?
Apparently, she just moved in. Even though Karen was Matthew's ex-girlfriend, she had married another man. However, she was kicked out when it was discovered that Larry and his siblings were not his children. She was also rejected by her own family and ended up at Matthew's parents' house. Lisa liked Karen because she was pretty and close in age to Matthew, so she accepted her. It was also significant that Larry and his siblings were Matthew's children. Well, in the end, they lost everything.
I'm looking forward to seeing how far they'll fall from here.
I agreed with her words with a smile. A few months later.
Jessica, it's been a while. It's been a while. I'm glad to see you're doing well.
I met with Larry. Since then, he had been taken in by James and was now living separately.
My old dad came to see me.
Karen's ex-husband seemed to love the children even though they weren't his biological kids. So, after receiving a call from James, he met with them.
We can't live together, but he said we're still his important kids.
Due to having another family, they couldn't live together. However, he promised to visit regularly.
That's great, Larry.
Yeah. He smiled happily. When he was at his parents' house, he always looked so apologetic. I was glad to see this change in him.
Thanks to you, Jessica, I have this life now. Thank you.
I smiled at his words and replied.
You're welcome.
Melissa, who was watching us, also smiled gently. In fact, Melissa initially said,
I'll take in those kids. I'll take in those kids.
However, she was single. No matter how much she earned, there were many hurdles to overcome in taking in someone else's children. So, her father decided to take them in.
I want to become a great successor.
He respected James a lot. Even though he was still a child, he was eager to be a successor. Seeing him talk with shining eyes, Melissa and I laughed together.
I'm really glad Larry is happy.
After parting with him, I murmured that. According to him, the younger siblings were also living happily with James. Feeling relieved, I walked with a high spirit.
Jessica! What?
I turned around at the voice calling me. There stood Matthew, clearly worn out. You've changed a lot since I last saw you.
I was wrong. Please, let's start over.
He bowed his head. Then he started talking about his situation on his own. Since we separated, only bad things have happened. After quitting his job, Matthew lost his severance pay and savings, paying the alimony for himself and Lisa. Even though he tried to get a new job, rumors about him had spread, and he was rejected everywhere.
And yet, my mother kept spending, so we had to take on debt.
Matthew spoke through tears. I looked at him coldly.
So, you're trying to sponge off me, the CEO? That's not what I mean. But as a CEO, you're making money, right? Oh, but according to you and your mother, I'm just a secretary.
I smiled at him.
Sorry, but a secretary can't pay off debts or provide support. You'll have to manage on your own.
My words made Matthew lose his strength and slump his shoulders. In the meantime, I hailed a taxi and got in.
Please drive.
I quickly left him behind. That was the last time I saw him. Later, I heard through the grapevine that he was caught by debt collectors and put on a ship bound for overseas. As for Lisa, she fell down the stairs and became bedridden. Looks like they got what they deserved. I murmured upon hearing their fates.
Well, let's do our best at work today. Take it easy. You have a tendency to overwork, Jessica.
I nodded at Brian's gentle smile. We had grown closer since that incident and were now married. Unlike Matthew, Brian was genuinely kind, and I was living a happy life with him.
Oh, by the way, today. I know, you're meeting Melissa, right?
My friendship with Melissa remained unchanged. We regularly had meals together and deepened our bond.
But if you feel unwell, call me. I'll come get you right away. You're not just looking out for yourself anymore.
Brian gently touched my stomach. Yes, I was carrying a new life inside me. When I was with Matthew, I never thought about having children. But now, I was truly happy to be expecting a child with Brian.
Yes, please take care of me if that happens.
Melissa and Larry were also happy about my pregnancy. Grateful for everyone around me, I smiled at the happiness in my daily life.